Hey, thank you, Candy. All right, hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. Um, so I work very closely with Jerry a while ago. So Jerry already gave you some terms about segmentation and all that, and hopefully you'll learn a bit more about data analytics. Okay, so let's start up the slide. All right. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so one of the things that I love is shopping. So I'm a shopaholic. And one of the habits that has changed when I started really with this pandemic and just being at home is I can't go to malls, right? So I'm afraid to go to malls. And so I have to shift in using e-commerce platforms like Lazada or Shopee. And one of the things that you will see in all of these day-to-day platforms, at least for me as a data scientist, is there's just so much analytics and artificial intelligence embedded into our daily lives. If you can hit on next, I'm personally more of a Lazada user and just grabbing a screen so you'll know actually what I've been looking at for the past few days. I've been into like organizing my stuff, and there will be a section that you'll see just for you, right? And that just for you section is actually analytics where there are algorithms at the back that looks at what are you searching and then what are the products that are commonly sold or customers that would commonly buy these products and they would match it for you. But personally, what I love to use as e-commerce platform is Amazon. So if you click next, one of the things that I love about Amazon is if you search for a product, and this is actually a product for tie dyes, they will tell you what are frequently bought by other customers when they buy this product. So you're kind of like gossiping with other people who has that same interest with you, and you want to be able to see what are you buying, right? And they would also suggest other products that people buy or people would search for when they look at this particular product. And these are things that can be done only because of analytics. Next slide. Um, the analytics or artificial intelligence, or what we call as AI, has a very, very big impact to our lives. In fact, we probably don't see it when you use Gcash, when you use your BPI banking applications. Analytics is just normally embedded into those applications. When you use food delivery services like Food Panda or Grab, or even social media platforms, all of the analytics are just embedded there. Hopefully, one day, we'll have autonomous vehicles in the Philippines, and I can just sleep while driving in traffic. But the rise of application or the application of analytics really stemmed from our advancement to go to digital. Next slide. So when we talk about going to digital, we really started with generating a lot of digital data. And then we discovered, okay, we need to make sense of this data. And why do we need to make sense of the data? We want to be able to serve our customers better. So Jerry talked about looking into customer journey maps, right? And being able to see what are things that we can serve better. And to enable that, we actually need analytics at the back end. This is a snapshot of the data that we generate just 2020, and I believe I got it from domo.com. So Domo has been like creating these infographics on a year by year basis. And you would see the famous platforms here and how much data is being generated. So imagine 500 hours of videos uploaded in YouTube on a per minute basis, or 41 million WhatsApp messages per minute being generated. What's very different last year in 2020 is that there has been this introduction on Microsoft Teams or in Zoom as a lot of people have shifted from working in offices to working from home and using all of these online communication tools for their meetings. And if you look at it from a Philippines perspective, next slide, how much are we really contributing to this digital data? This is a statistics coming from one of the sources that I got, and on a yearly basis, they actually check which are the top 20 countries that has the highest number of internet users. I've been looking into these statistics, I believe, since like 2018 or 2019. And on a year-to-year basis, we have been there in the top 20. We've been consistently in number 12, actually. So Philippines has been contributing a lot to that generation of digital data. Next slide. And so you may have heard of this phrase, data is the new oil, right? Data is immensely untapped, valuable asset. But unlike oil, it has been increasing and we keep on generating more and more data year on year. So, but similarly, like oil as well, when you have those data, it's actually useless unless you have a good platform or infrastructure that will be able to harvest that data or harvest oil. And you need to be able to process oil or process data to make it usable. And so that's the reason why data and analytics have been like partners in crime, I would think so, in enabling businesses. Next. So one of the important things for you to note is that we can't really harness the value of data without analytics. So then we look at what is analytics. Next slide. There are probably different definitions of what analytics is. Personally, for me, the best way is to define analytics in this picture. When we talk about analytics, it comes in different forms. The lowest, the gray one, is called descriptive analytics. So descriptive explains what happened, right? So when you look at the data, it explains what happened to our business. We typically see this in a dashboard or in a report and explains to you, oh, what has, what sales, number of sales or revenues have you had for the past month or for the past quarter. Next to that is diagnostic analytics. Diagnostic analytics looks at um, why it happened. So you have to do a more deep dive analysis, a what if analysis. You try to be able to look at the root cause and you try to look at being able to explain why did it happen. The next level is what we call predictive analytics. So predictive analytics typically applies statistics or some form of algorithm for you to be able to say what could happen, right? And potentially predict the likelihood or probability of something. The next level is prescriptive analytics. So you try to prescribe, you provide insights of what you should do. And lastly, we call it AI or artificial intelligence, or sometimes it's also called advanced analytics, where you actually look into different cognitive services, typically more complex. As you go, you know, in terms of analytics, as you go higher from descriptive, going to predictive, going to AI, the value that you bring to the business also increases. But it also means that it becomes more complex and you probably have to make it more automated. Next slide. So, what is AI, right? AI are basically machines that mimic the cognitive function that humans associate with the human mind. Um, Personally, for me, I look at AI as a very interesting thing because for me, it's like you can make AIs like a baby. So babies who can basically do certain skill, right? Like a baby being able to recognize pictures of animals. Or you can also make AI an adult, someone who can play chess with you and who can compete with you in chess or do complex things. But it basically tries to mimic a certain part of our brain activity in a way. Next slide. When we talk about AI, there are different categories, and it's good for you to maybe, just understand it from a terminology perspective. AI is a broad terminology, but inside AI, there's what we call machine learning. And machine learning is being able to learn without explicitly programming it. So if you guys are probably having, computer or programming background, you would create rules to tell the computer what to do, and that's not machine learning. Machine learning is you basically feed it with data, and through whatever algorithm, it will be able to tell you what's the output, what's the correlation between one feature to the other. And a subset of machine learning is what we call deep learning, where we actually use neural networks to process complex data, including big data or unstructured data. Now, I know this is probably going to be very, very complex as you try to define or as you try to understand what AI is. Now, let me give you a simple example, right? So, next slide. So, a fun example that I like to teach when I talk about AI is identifying images, whether in this case it's whether the photo is a muffin or a dog. It's funny, right? Because if you look at the dog there, it really looks like the muffin, right? So now I'll try to show you a series of photos, and I'm not sure if the GIF will work, but let's see. Um, there you go. So you can see, can you easily spot, is it a dog or is it a muffin? For some pictures, yes, right? But there are actually some pictures where you think, okay, it looks like a muffin. It takes you maybe a second longer to be able to identify that. So, as a human being, it's easily able to distinguish between a muffin and a dog. Try to give it to a 1 year old or a 2 year old or 3 year old toddler. And they have probably, it would take them more time, right? If you flash those as a flashcard. So machine learning, as I try to see it, it's like a kid. You're trying to train them to recognize pictures, whether they're a dog or a muffin, and then they're able to then process it. And then when you train them well, when they have a good output, they can easily detect whether one is a muffin and one is a dog. But of course, that's just for fun, right? What about for the business? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. I just wanted to infuse something fun for you guys to understand what AI is. AI has really evolved throughout the years from a business perspective. So before, I remembered back in early 2000, there will always be companies where they would have doctorate degree individuals working on AI. They would be a special set of people. Um, and these special set of people will then craft AI models and then cascade it to the business. And the business goes ballistic and says, what do I do with this? And how does it generate value? But this is not the case anymore now. So now it is expected that, in the normal roles, you understand what analytics and AI is. You're able to think, how do I really embed it in my expertise? And then it becomes a protocol, a standard protocol that says, you have to think about how do you embed analytics and how will analytics help you. So I work closely with Jerry. So Jerry does the customer experience, and then she'd go to me and she'd say, hey, Cindy, we need segmentation. We need to understand this and that. And we would have to craft together an AI project and then be able to test that, learn from it. And that's where the feedback loops come in. We have to learn to see, does it work or does it not work? And then test it again or recreate it and test it again. And what we focus on is really making a difference by creating a value, making a difference either by changing your business model, creating business value, or building certain impact for the customer. Right? Next slide. So one of the things that you may probably ask, right? So AI, we've seen it in Facebook, in applications that we use on a day-to-day basis, but how is it impacting the insurance industry? And where is really insurance industry across this? One of the things that is, I'm not sure if you guys know, but financial institutions and insurance industry are probably the late bloomers when it comes to digital transformation, and it they are as well late bloomers when it comes to data and analytics. So from McKinsey, I got this from McKinsey. They actually categorized um, AI or analytics into four stages, and then they looked at all of the major insurance players across the world. And they realized that most of the insurance industry are actually in scale one, or being able to generate insights, being able to build an AI function, but not really led by the business. And they have probably some sort of a data platform where they are able to store the data there. But a lot of the insurance companies actually struggle to deploy AI at scale, to be able to build so many use cases across different departments. And the ambition of all organizations is to be that analytics driven organization, to have analytics and AI as part of your DNA. Like it's automatic when I have to build a tool or when I have to build a service, you know that you need AI and where you will need AI. Next slide. So if you've also noticed, insurance are a bit more traditional, right? So they're not yet there in terms of changing business model, in terms of able to shape the future. And so they predicted that there are six forces at play when it comes to shaping insurance industry. There will be definitely new business models, cost optimization that's needed, diversification of products as well. And we will see this industry going to be disrupted, just like how Grab or Uber disrupted our transportation industry. And we will see this really coming along soon. And that's one of the reasons why we have to embed analytics and AI, because it's going to be very, very important for us to be able to generate those insights and be able to then transform or change our business from there. Next slide. So you'd probably ask me, hey, um, what type of analytics do we do for insurance, right? From the use of new data or more data, we can actually be able to look into cross-selling, be able to look into looking at what's the best product that you can offer next to your customers. And I'll give you an example later on that. You can look into optimization of the agent network or the agent compensation, or probably help optimize the work of an agent. We can look into AI-based models, like looking into customer attrition, looking into fraud models, looking into workplace productivity or operational efficiency. And we can even go to more mature AI, looking into new business models or even data monetizations. There's so many use cases across different areas when we talk about being able to apply AI into our business. Next slide. And this is one of the things that I grabbed from McKinsey. So they said, what would customer care from an insurance industry look like in 2030? So as you know, in insurance, when you buy a product, right? Potentially you're handed over for you to be able to manage the product. So your agent would be there, but in a way, you may want to call the call centers if you have any query, or you may want to go to the mobile platform to ask questions. And so customer care is seen as something that can be revolutionized, where basically there will be bots, voice bots, or even chat bots that you can talk to and answer your questions instantly so that you are able to get whatever data that you need. And on certain cases only where there will be a kind of an advisory heavy interactions, that you will actually be able to talk to um, real human beings. So some of the repetitive potential work will be replaced by bots, and these bots will be kind of empowered by AI. Right? Now, let's go to what we are doing from an AIA Philippines standpoint. Right? Next slide. And if you can skip that and go to the next slide. So for us to be able to achieve our AI ambitions, we try to build projects based on certain use cases. So we look into leads generation, we look into being able to help with digital adoption, being able to look into cost optimization or risk fraud. What's important is when you build AI, it has to be based on the customer need or on the business need. So we don't just build AI for fun. We need to know what's the problem, how do we solve it through AI, and then what would be the resulting customer value. What's important for us in our organization is we also embed building AI with the right process, the right technology, and empowering our people. So when we talk about process, one of the important key points in AI is it has to be ethical. It doesn't and it shouldn't discriminate people, right? So we have to be careful in implementing AI across the board. And that's the reason why we have AI governance in place. And at the same time, we as well educate our business users as to what AI is all about. So we have to let them understand, right, that it's not a magic potion to say, hey, AI is the solution to everything, right? It cannot be that way. So as you think about solutions, you cannot say, oh, AI can do that. We want AI to do this, this, and that. So it has to be realistic. And because of that, we educate our stakeholders, we educate our business, and we ensure that they are aware of what AI is all about and that we have to be ethical and we have to follow certain regulations as well when we build it. All right. So next slide, let's give you an example of what we've done, right? Because most of the AIs that we are doing, I cannot probably share it with you, but this is a very simple example. One of the insights that we found out, and I was actually very surprised when I entered the insurance industry, is that customers who have bought policies with a company, with an insurance company, they tend to buy more. So I thought when you buy one insurance policy, that's it, right? I'm done. I have an insurance policy. But it's apparently not the case. When you buy one insurance policy, you actually would want to buy more, either for your family members or for, I don't know, for other people, or look into investments, right? So then resell campaigns or reselling to these customers or to our existing customers are very important. But as you know, when you do reselling, you cannot just do a campaign for everyone. It's going to be very, very expensive. So you can see this funnel. Typically, we have our customer base. And then what we do is we look at who are eligible or who are the existing customers who are eligible for reselling. And then we feed these customers to a certain AI model. We basically check into their demographics, their what products have they bought, who are the agents, and so on, and then um, rate who are highly likely to buy another product. So those who are highly scored then will be taken by the marketing team, and then kind of funneled through their campaigns, and that would yield us a higher conversion rate, or more people, more customers who would be buying new insurance products. So that's an example of how we apply AI into our day-to-day business. Okay. And next, so that's the end of my slide. If you do have questions, you can reach out to me. I'm sharing my email. One of the things that I part with you guys is, if you do not know how to ask the right question, you discover nothing. And that's very important, because I think as part of this hackathon, you guys are trying to solve problems. And you can't just say, oh, let's apply customer experience, let's apply AI, and then that's it. But you guys have to know, what are the questions that you want to be solved, what are the questions that you want answered, and then discover how you're going to solve.